Good afternoon and welcome to today's planning meeting. I'm Councillor Majid Khan, the Chair of Planning. Today's meeting is not a public meeting, but the public are welcome to attend. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if it does go off, please make your way out through the fire exit, and the meeting point is outside the Cass Theatre. If you've got mobility issues, please wait at the lift, which is on the right-hand side, and someone will come and give assistance. The meeting is going to be recorded for use by the council on our YouTube and internal site. By entering the chamber, you're agreeing to be recorded. And if anybody from the public or anybody else needs to record any aspect of the meeting, please only direct it to the people who are speaking at the time and don't disturb the meeting. And can I ask everyone to please put the phones onto silent? For speakers who will be speaking at the meeting today, you need to press the large red button to speak. And the meeting is proceeding on the basis that all panel members have read through the documents and the agenda items and fully briefed. If any member needs to leave the meeting at any point during an application, they will not be able to take part in the vote because they won't have heard all the relevant information. So please make note of that. If we do need to adjourn after an application, if we need a comfort break, please let me know and we'll do it that way instead. Apologies for absence, which is item number 1. I've had apologies from Councillor Dawson. On item number 2, there's no exempt items on the agenda. And item number 3, are there any declarations of interest? Nope. Item number 4 is the meeting that we held on the 3rd of June 2025. Can the minutes be moved as a true and accurate record? Is that moved? Thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you. And is that agreed? Come on, panel, be a bit more enthusiastic. Right. Item number 5 is the schedule of applications. Application number 1 is 230264 FULM, erection of 150 dwellings with associated access, drainage, infrastructure, public open space and landscaping at land north of Hatfield Lane, Barnby Dun, Doncaster. I'm going to ask Dave Richards to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everybody. Just in terms of pre-committee amendments, the applicants team, planning team are here today. They're not down to give a presentation, but they are available if there's any questions prior to going into debate. And just to note a correction in the committee report, thank you, Councillor Anderson, on page 13 with a typo, and then the rewording of a planning condition relating to securing adaptable and accessible homes and the condition to include the individual plot numbers. At the last committee, the application was deferred for further clarity around the education contribution. That's absolutely fair. If new homes are coming forward at the planning application stage, an assessment is required to ensure that local schools can cope as part of following local plan policies. This application secures £605,000 £509 through a legal agreement, and that figure is based on a well-established formula used across the country, and it's called the pupil yield. So for every new home, we can estimate how many children it's likely to generate. In this case, the specific development, when taking into account local conditions, generates a demand for 2 primary school places and 23 secondary school places. These are predictions, but they are informed by years of demographic data and research. The cost per school place comes from the Department of Education and reflects real-world costs of building and expanding schools. Put together, you get a contribution that's fair, proportionate and evidence-based. For the primary education catchment, the catchment school is Barnby Dun Primary School. It's the local school to Barnby Dun. It serves the village. The education team have obviously confirmed it's the most appropriate. It's within walking distance of the site and serves the local community. In terms of the secondary education provision, that's directed towards Hunger Hill School in Edenthorpe. It's the nearest secondary school with available capacity and also a realistic ability to expand. These choices reflect the proximity of the schools, the capacity and the practicality, and that's all part of the evidence-led approach by the education team in presenting the illustration on the application. A lot of writing here, but at the bottom left, I talk about the statutory tests. So this is because planning obligations must follow law. Under the requirements to secure a legal agreement, they have to be necessary to make the development acceptable, directly related to the development, and fair and proportionate in relation to the scale and kind of the development. So essentially, if a council asks for more than what actually is predicted, or if we pick a different school that's not likely to be impacted, we run the risk of that contribution being struck out on appeal or legal challenge. Just turning to the application more generally, and as a recap, this is a fully allocated housing site in the adopted local plan. The allocation went through extensive public consultation, was tested at public examination and adopted with cross-party support. The scheme goes above and beyond the baseline expectations set out in the developer requirements. So it proposes 150 dwellings, but the housing density is comparable with the existing surrounding development in Barnby Dum. The scheme secures 23% affordable housing, so that's 35 new affordable homes. These are tenure compliant, fully integrated into the layout and help meet acute local need. The public open space accounts for over 34% of the site area. That's pretty much more than double what the local plan requirement is. And that includes set-free access to, as you can see, a green corridor, circular walking route, natural play areas. In terms of biodiversity net gain, this application came in before it was mandatory, but it achieves a 38.5% gain to habitats and a 97.8% gain to hedgerow units, and well beyond the 10% target. So in summary, it's a policy-compliant, plan-led proposal that delivers high-quality housing, significant public benefits. It's been shaped by community input and meets expectations of our local plan, and as such, it's recommended for approval subject to the completion of the Section 106 and the conditions as set out in the report. Thanks, Chair.
Committee members, do we have any questions? Councillor Cox.
Sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I can't seem to find where the affordable housing will be allocated within that plan, Dave. Can you show me? Can you put it out?
Thanks, Councillor. For some reason I thought maybe there is a plan that indicates the affordable homes on the development. I thought it might be the appendices, but I haven't included it. It's essentially, originally with the application when it came in, it was concentrated in sort of the corner of the site towards the railway line. And essentially that's since been amended by the applicant. So it's, as I say, pepper potted throughout the site. So there's groups, individual groups of 3-4 affordable homes throughout the site.
We can't actually see that though, can we? I can't see it in this paperwork.
Not within the committee report. Obviously, it's within the plans and documents submitted with the application, and that includes an affordable housing plan showing where the plots are.
Any other questions from committee members? No? Committee members will go into debate. Does any committee member wish to comment on the report or ask any questions to the planning officer? Our education colleagues are here also, so if there's any questions to be directed to them.
Yeah, I'm just really struggling with the yield, like the 2 primary school places, 106 contributions for that. I mean, I've been going over and over and over, and the Department for Education, their yielding figures say a 5-bedroom house would typically generate 0.25 to 1.25 primary school places. So that's just for the 5-bed houses. So I'm really struggling with the 2 primary school contribution 106 monies.
Are you wanting clarification from one of the education officers on that question?
Hi there, Councillor Anderson. So the development actually generates 32 pupil places, but the school can already accommodate 30 of them. So we only have an overflow of 2 places that will need funding. So the development generates 32 places, but there are 30 places available in the school. So we only need the surplus of the 2 places to be funded by the developer.
Councillor Clark? Yep.
So what you're saying then is the school is full?
So the school has 30 places available at present. With this development creating 32 places, obviously they can accommodate 30 of them, but they don't have places for the remaining 2. So the remaining 2 are the ones that we're saying we need to create.
And sorry, but like Bobby, I know training's been given on it, and I know it's a strange subject, and it's difficult to quantify. But what future proofing have you got in there? Because I mean, this is one allocation, quite a large allocation, that's coming forward, and we know from previous ones, I won't mention them, that the growth is quicker now than it has been before, and some of the numbers that are given are going back 3-4 years, and they don't work with how the MPPF and everything else working now. So how are we going to give that provision for young people moving forward? I'm severely lost with it, because it's not there. There's more mention of a tree than there is about young people. And it's all the way through this document that there's more about trees than young people. And there's something wrong there.
So Councillor Cox, Neil McAllister from the Learning Provision team. In terms of our responsibility for planning for school places, we're held to various assessments, particularly from the Department for Education. The Department for Education sets out through an annual survey that they do with us, and we have to submit that on an annual basis to them. That survey includes both the number of places that are available, so the size of the schools, and then the number of pupils that we predict are coming through. Every local authority does that every year, so we use that data to submit as part of our planning responses as we go forward. In terms of this development, so Barmydon specifically, this is the only new developments in this area that's coming to pass, so this is the assessment that we're using for this one. Had it been a different area, we may have taken a different view, but in terms of Barmydon coming forward, using the data that we have and using a nationally recognised forecasting model of 3 pupils per 100 houses, that generates the 32 pupils we've spoken about. Barmydon has places for those 32, shortfall of 2, and so we're not allowed to ask for any further funding in terms of the development. We can accommodate those 32 places in there. We can't accommodate the additional one, which is different in the case of Hunger Hill. In case of Hunger Hill, we've asked the full ask using that methodology. But for Barmydon Primary School alone, they have a shortfall. It's published information for everybody to see as part of our submission, so we have to use that information. And just to clarify, it is based upon real life birth data, so we get details of all the children that are born in the area. So we know for Barmydon the birth rate that comes through, so we use that for that particular area.
Can you... Right, school, the allocated places at Hunger Hill, how many places were allocated after the development that went off at side of Hunger Hill? Do you know? No. And I mean, that'd be interesting to know, because obviously there's that development there, there's the impact of the developments that are going off all the way through Armthorpe. We know that the developments in Armthorpe have an allocated parcel of land that is down to mitigate the contribution that we've been there before, haven't we? That it don't always work. But at what point, I mean, if a developer comes forward now within the Barmydon catchment area and puts a development forward for a lot of houses, let's say 100, would you be objecting to that development, bearing in mind the primary school's full? Or would you be asking for a big contribution from the developer to build additional spaces on a playground that maybe doesn't fit?
In terms of a further development coming forward, then we'd take a view at that point, and we'd take that into account. So we would then project, we have the number of pupils that are born in the area, and then we have the yield from this development, and then any future one would be taken into account on top of that as well. We'd be projecting that therefore part of the issue is that until the houses are built, the children don't come along, but we use that information as best we can.
Mr McAllister, can you just give clarification on Hunger Hill and the allocation there as well, please?
Okay, so Hunger Hill has an admission number per year group of 252 places and an overall capacity for the whole school of 1,260. This request was based on the actual pupil numbers in spring 24, which was 1,172, and a projection overall of 1,359. So what the assessment gate took into account with a 2% contingency applied, which is the recognised formula, that 23 places were required for Hunger Hill School, none of which could be accommodated within the existing capacity.
So essentially we've asked for the full amount for every pupil we believe is projected to come forward.
And what is that full amount?
£569,503 for the secondary allocation.
Thank you. Panel, any other questions? Any other comments? Councillor Dennis?
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to highways issues, I know that the junction of Doncaster Road and Armthorpe Lane can be a trouble, and you can be waiting there for quite some time at the moment. So I was looking through the submitted documents on the planning portal as to the traffic assessment that was done by the developer and then the council's response to that. In regards to Doncaster Road and Armthorpe Lane, at present, there can be a maximum of 65-second delay in the evening peak times, growing to a maximum delay of 228 seconds should the development get passed. And that's projected to be over the capacity of that junction. The council's assessment then says, this is an area of concern. Mitigation improvements, mitigation improvements at this junction are requested from the applicant, but I can't see any mitigation has been submitted by the applicant.
Dave, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Councillor. Could you just refer to which part of the report are you referring to when it talks about asking for mitigation at that junction?
So in the pack that we have in front of us, it's point 7.54. However, I've then cross-referenced that information with what's on the planning portal.
So the 7.54 refers to my part of the assessment of the transport assessment that was submitted, and then Highways colleagues have commented on that. And essentially all of the junctions operate within capacity with the exception, as you say, of the Doncaster Road, Armthorpe Lane junction. And that exhibits queuing for approximately half an hour or so. I think what the more holistic view that the transportation team have taken is that the uplift in queuing at that junction is already in existence. Essentially, that's through background traffic over a period of time, over the next 11 years or so, is the predominant cause of that, and the actual trip generation from this development, which equates to around one car every minute, is not sort of a contributing factor to the operation of that junction. During the course of the application, we did investigate whether there were any junction mitigation improvements at that junction requested as part of this application, again referring back to the tests. And our transportation team confirmed that they have not asked for any mitigation from this application on that junction. In the summary, I guess I can say is the increase from this development is marginal. Yes, the junction is queuing, but when you're taking into account the increase from this specific development, when you're looking at the NPPF's test, which talks about whether the increase is severe or results in an unacceptable impact, the decision we've taken is that it doesn't meet those tests. And essentially, there is some queuing as a result of this development, but that cumulatively is within acceptable limits.
Thank you, Dave. I understand where you're coming from the policy perspective. I'm just trying to balance that with, we know that junction is a problem at the moment, and the development will add to that problem. There will need to be some mitigation at that junction at some point over future years, otherwise it'll be queuing for 5, 10, 6, 7 minutes, however long, in an evening time. So, but you're saying that the increase from the development wouldn't be enough to have any of that intervention in the next 10 years?
That's essentially correct, yes. And maybe there's another discussion around sort of wider transport improvements, separate to this application, but this specific development is not considered severe in terms of its impact.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a proposer to grant planning permission subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement and imposition of planning conditions? Is there a mover for the recommendation? Okay, I'll move it. Is that seconded? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ward. I'll now move to the vote. Can you please indicate by raising your hand if you're in favour and keep your hands held up? And those against? Are there any abstentions? So that's been carried and that planning application is approved. Thank you. We'll now move on to application number 2. Sorry. Moving on to application number 2, 2202-396 FULM, full planning application for 186 residential units, C3, associated car parking, garages, vehicular, pedestrian and cycle access and infrastructure, public open space, landscaping, a pumping station, foul and surface water, drainage infrastructure and biodiversity enhancements, with vehicular access from Alverley Lane at Landoff Alverley, Bolby, Doncaster. Alicia Murray is the officer, and I'll ask her to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application is before Planning Committee due to the level of public interest that has been received. This application has been subject to several amendments and in turn several rounds of public consultation. The application has also received an objection from the local ward member. The proposal is now for 126 dwellings on the land allocated for housing within the Doncaster local plan, with its associated works including access, landscaping and drainage infrastructure. I would just like to make members aware of the pre-committee amendments, which highlight some report corrections and amendments to the wording of some of the planning conditions. Additionally, there has been representations received from some of the objectors, which are summarised, but that are reiterations of previous objections received. It should be noted that just before committee, it's been highlighted that condition 16 refers to the incorrect landscaping condition number. It should refer to condition 21, not condition 19. The site is located within the Bowlby South Ward. It is an agricultural field which has been allocated for housing within the local plan. The land is separated from the green belt to the south by the disused railway embankment, which is a local wildlife site, which is named St Catherine's Railway Embankments, Delves and Cuttings, and then St Catherine's Plantation. The site would be accessed off Alverley Lane, which is a residential street, with Tickhill Road and Farm Court residential properties to the east. Tickhill Road is a main A road through the city, with good connections to the A1M and the M18. There are local services along Springwell Lane, and to the west of the site, and local bus routes along Alverley Lane, Springwell Lane and Tickhill Road. This is an image of the site itself. As you can see, it's a greenfield site, which has been used for agricultural purposes, with houses running along the top of the site, which are properties of on Farm Court and Tickhill Road. You can see from the picture that the land falls down to the west, and there is a tree line running along the eastern and western boundaries. This just shows the site in context of Alverley Lane from the top. This also shows the land levels of the street where the land falls down towards the bottom of Alverley Lane. And again, these images show the site in the context of Alverley Lane. The proposal includes properties facing onto Alverley Lane itself with access straight onto it, and then a central access and egress point onto Alverley Lane for the development as a whole. As you can see from the images, the properties on Alverley Lane are two-storey red brick properties with front gardens and driveways. This character is reflected in the dwellings proposed along Alverley Lane. This image is of the junction with Alverley Lane and Tickhill Road. This is the location of the proposed signalisation, which would be secured via the Section 278 application under the Highways Act. The properties on Tickhill Road are set back off the highway, and there is a very green appearance with stone walls and hedgerow as a prominent means of enclosure. And then this is the image of the bottom junction on Alverley Lane onto Springwell Lane. As you can see in the image, there's a bus shelter and a bus turning circle. Springwell Lane connects into the wider Bowlby area, and there are some local services just around the corner on Springwell Lane as well. So hopefully that's given you a bit of context of the site's location. The proposal is to provide 186 1 to 4 bedroom homes on this allocated site. The houses would be accessed via a single access point coming onto Alverley Lane, with private drives and single driveways for those plots facing onto Alverley Lane. There would be 2 areas of open space located centrally and to the western boundary. The POS on the western boundary will include a leap play area, with the POS centrally located being a field for open play. Additionally, there would be a cycle and pedestrian access provided along the southern boundary for connections onto the Bridleway and onwards towards Springwell Plantation and the green space beyond. The properties on the eastern boundary will be back to back with those on Tickhill Road, with rear gardens extending the separation distance. The existing boundary treatment will remain in situ along the boundary with Tickhill Road, with the existing tree belt along the southern boundary also remaining in situ. These are examples of some of the house types proposed for the site. The houses have been designed to reflect the character of Alverley Lane, whilst providing the more modern needs of the family homes. The materials proposed are red multi-brick. The proposal does include the provision of bungalows to enable the development to achieve the M43 adaptability standards required, and to offer a diverse mix of housing for the area. Furthermore, a significant number of the houses are also designed to be adaptable to ensure the dwellings are meeting the Build for Life standards. All the dwellings meet the nationally described space standards and have the required level of private amenity space with the rear gardens. The dwellings also meet the required separation distances internally within the site, and the front boundary treatments will be a combination of low-level boundary treatments except on the corner plots, which they would be landscaped. The proposal does include some 2.5-storey homes, which have also been provided on the newer housing estates within the area, and the majority of the houses would have garages, whether integral or detached, and all the dwellings meet the required parking standards, and the estate has been designed to offer visitor spaces within the highway. During the process of the application, the case officer has sought amendments and further justification to ensure the development protects the amenity of the existing neighbouring residential properties. As part of the process, the applicant has provided sections to show that the proposed dwellings do not hinder the existing dwellings in terms of dominance, overlooking and overshadowing. This is represented in the site section shown on this slide. Consideration has been given to the proximity of the plots and the neighbouring dwellings on Farm Court. As a result of this consideration, these plots are proposed to be bungalows, and the orientation of those plots have been altered. Clarification has been sought regarding the land levels and the positions of the dwellings in relation to the existing properties on Tickhill Road. Again, these sections show that the land raises up towards the boundary of Tickhill Road, and the separation distances and garden depths are fully compliant. Overall, the amended scheme has taken into account the site constraints and sensibly designed its layout, plot orientation and its house types accordingly. With regards to landscaping, it has been previously mentioned that there are existing trees along the eastern and southern edges of the site. The proposal would require the removal of some trees, but these would be replaced with new planting within the landscape master plan. Tree protection measures would be placed on site prior to the commencement of the development to ensure the protection of the trees outlined to remain. The landscape master plan outlines a substantial amount of additional planting along the boundary with the local wildlife site and within the areas of public open space. Additionally, the proposal includes the provision of street trees in line with local plan policies. In terms of recreation, a play area is proposed for use by the public and forms part of the on-site public open space provision. An indicative proposal has been submitted which outlines a woodland-style play area with balancing, climbing and swing-style equipment with additional seating. Additionally, the trim trail equipment is proposed along the southern boundary. The details of the play equipment and both the hard and soft landscaping will be secured via planning condition. The main area of concern raised by the objections has centred around the impact of the development will have on the highway network and highway safety. Given this proposed development has been required to provide a robust justification to establish that any harm can be mitigated. As a result of modelling and an assessment of the current situation of the network, a mitigation scheme has been proposed for off-site highway works. The proposal is to signalise the junction with Alveley Lane and Tickhill Road. The scheme includes a number of works, which I'll just summarise. The footway to the western side of the A60 Tickhill Road would be widened to provide space for vehicles exiting driveways to wait off the carriageway and including the widening of that footway. A signalised pedestrian crossing point would be provided across the A60 Tickhill Road 3 metres to the south of the proposed stop line location and a second one 3 metres to the north. The crossing point will tie in with the existing footway provision on the east and western sides of Tickhill Road and provide greenman crossing facilities as part of the operation of the traffic signals. It is known and highlighted within the objections that HGVs turning onto Alveley Lane from the A60 Tickhill Road currently overrun into the approach lane at the junction over a significant distance. In order to accommodate this, the stop line on Alveley Lane would need to be set back a significant distance from the junction, which would impact the efficiency of those signals. So to avoid this, there's going to be a need to propose a traffic regulation order to prohibit the movement of vehicles over 7.5 tonnes westbound along Alveley Lane from the A60, while still allowing HGV movements in an eastbound direction to accommodate refuse vehicles and deliveries. It's noted from the survey data that no HGVs were observed travelling west along Alveley Lane from the A60 Tickhill Road during the surveyed periods. The implementation of the TRO of this nature prohibiting the movement would provide a safety benefit for both the junction and along Alveley Lane without impacting on travel patterns of a large number of vehicles. The signals would require relocation of a bus stop on Tickhill Road. This would be provided and improved with additional tactile crossing points and dropped curbs in its new location. There'd also be improvements to other bus stops close by, and including the provision of real-time display and improvements to the service itself. These will be secured by either the 278 application or a Section 106 where a financial contribution is required. The results of the modelling show that the signalised junction arrangement would result in a significant improvement to its operating conditions at the junction and a significant reduction in queuing on Alveley Lane, particularly at morning peak when compared to the existing junction layout. With regards to queuing along Alveley Lane, signalisation of the junction is predicted to result in a significant reduction in queuing, with a maximum queue of 14 passenger car units during the morning peak in the signalised option compared to 59 predicted in the existing junction model. The signalisation of the junction would distribute queuing experienced at the junction across all approaches rather than queuing forming solely on Alveley Lane as it's currently the case. Additionally, the roundabout, Woodfield Way roundabout, would continue to operate within capacity with the additional U-turn movements as a result of the banned right turn movements at Alveley Lane and the A60 Tickhill Road junctions. As part of the proposed mitigation scheme, the safety impacts of the proposal have been carefully considered by the Highway Safety Team. The tracking of the vehicles has been conducted and the works are considered to be in line with the industry standards and would not result in increase in harm to the highway safety of the area. Furthermore, the harm of the development subject to the off-site highway works would not result in a severe impact to the highway network in line with paragraph 116 of the MPPF. So, as highlighted within the committee report and this presentation, the application has a significant number of objections, and the key concerns of the residents of the scale of development. The local plan's 150 dwelling figure is indicative and it's not a cap, so the MPPF supports efficient land use and higher densities with good design. The 186 homes has been fully assessed and is considered to be policy compliant. There's also objections raised on the impact on neighbour amenity. Again, it's been carefully considered, in particular those residents on Farm Court and Grange Farm and Tickhill Road, and amendments have been secured to ensure that the impact is minimal and it's policy compliant. The phasing of the development and details of the construction methods and traffic will be secured via a pre-commencement planning condition. This will ensure the neighbouring amenity is protected as much as possible during the construction stage. Drainage, there's also been concerns raised by residents regarding the current issues of surface water flooding on the site. These have been recognised within the drainage strategy, and the development has been designed to mitigate the impact to surface water. This is through the provision of a robust design for the disposal of the surface water via an attenuation tank and ensuring the properties within close proximity to the surface water flood zone are set 300mm above the road to prevent flooding, and there's been no objections from the lead local flood authority or the Environment Agency. As we've said, the highway impact has also been a concern for the residents. The access point meets the required highway standards, and the modelling has highlighted the need to mitigate the impact of the development on the junction with Alveley Lane and Tickhill Road. The mitigation is to signalise that junction, which includes the provision of 2 signal crossings and improved footpath connectivity. The signalisation has been reviewed against industry standards and is considered an acceptable way of mitigating the impact. Residents also raised concerns on the ecological impact and loss of the green space. The proposal has been subject to a robust ecological impact assessment. It's highlighted no protected species will be impacted by the proposal. There would be a substantial buffer zone to the neighbouring local wildlife site, and the land is allocated for housing within the Doncaster local plan and is not an area of protected green space. In regards to school provisions, it's been acknowledged that the schools within the catchment for this site are operating within capacity, and therefore there is a nil contribution required towards education provision. And the provision of health services has been centrally funded and based upon population growth forecasting by the NHS. And this department were consulted on when the site was allocated and raised no objections. And finally, people have also raised concerns of connectivity. So the site is walkable to schools, shops and bus stops, and there'll be new pedestrian and cycle links and bus stop upgrades included, along with a travel plan securing funding for further measures. So in summary, the scheme delivers significant housing in line with the local plan developer requirements. It provides 43 on-site affordable homes. It has public open space and play equipment provision. It has a combination of on and off-site provision for biodiversity net gain, which equates to the 10%. The infrastructure contribution secured through the travel bonds, bus service funding, real-time passenger displays and off-site highway works to improve the capacity within the road network. It has the signalisation of the junction with Alveley Lane, which will reduce the queuing in the AM peak by 45 units and would distribute the queuing on all arms of the junction, which would result in an improved traffic flow. And we've had technical agreement from all consultees on highways, landscaping, design, flooding and drainage. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Teasdale present? Mr. Teasdale, welcome. Would you like to come to the front? So if you'd like to come to the front, right at the bottom. Just there. Thank you, Mr. Teasdale. You've jumped the gun a bit. If you want to turn your microphone off a second.
Oh.
Yep. So you're going to have 5 minutes to address the committee. So press the red button once you're ready to talk, and once you've got when you've got 30 seconds left, I'll let you know. And once you finish, just press the red button again. So whenever you're ready to start.
Right. Good afternoon, councillors. I'm Martin Teasdale. I'm a resident of Alveley Lane. My profession is I'm a senior environmental health officer for a neighbouring local authority. So currently, the issues that I want to raise, education. My 12-year-old daughter recently started at high school within the area. There is 32 children in her class. They were severely oversubscribed in Year 7 and Year 8. Even though the schools were not completely oversubscribed, in these years they were oversubscribed. So I ask, why is there no investment in these schools in this area? It is poor that there is no investment in these years. I have an 8-year-old daughter that will be approaching these schools. Our concern is whether she will have a place. Part of this, I want you to consider that Dainham Glade is currently under construction within a mile of this location. That is 375 properties that are currently under development. The development of the Dominion Estate, which currently is around 1,800 properties, is now moving into a further phase, which will increase the load on that area further. This planning permission has been granted. Highway improvements. The improvements will be made before the properties are occupied. They have acknowledged that there is an issue with traffic because they are implementing this. Why is that not being implemented before they've even stepped on site? I don't see a reason why that should not be implemented first before the work has even started. Considering site staff, deliveries, machinery, they will increase the usage of that road before this has even been implemented. I ask about the construction management plan. Obviously, it currently doesn't exist. Will residents have access to it? Can we see what residents are expected to cope with? Who will we go to in regards noise? Who will we go to in regards parked vehicles that are parked in front of our properties? Parking is very limited already on Alveley Lane, so more vehicles will cause an issue for local people. So I ask, will we be able to comment on the construction management plan before this is accepted? So as residents, we know who to go to and what to expect. And if we can comment, then it's us who can stipulate what we can actually cope with, and try to mould it, if this is going to be implemented, to reduce the impact on residents. It needs to be a priority that the construction management plan is in place. The elevation of the properties on Alverley Lane, generally the properties are below the level of the highway. Across the road, if you look at the plan, the properties are literally from the road straight to the properties. Where I live currently, if the property is built at the same height of the highway, then we will be severely overlooked, and it will severely impact the light into habitable rooms in my property and several of my neighbours that I know are here now. So them properties on the street will impact residents that are already in situ. I also want to ask why on the plan there's no real comments from environmental health. In our neighbouring authority, environmental health would comment, because there is neighbouring properties, on the impact of noise, the impact of dust. They have not really said anything on the plan. So I would like more from environmental health. I would want a conversation with environmental health, because at the minute they've not really said anything and acknowledged the impact.
30 seconds, Mr. Teasdale.
So in conclusion, I would ask councillors to look more closely at the education implementation and the lack of investment. Local schools, they are struggling. We've got 500, maybe 600 properties already planned for the area. As they've acknowledged, we do not know the birth rate from properties that are going to be occupied over the next few years. We do not know the severity of the impact of the properties that have already been given planning permission.
Thank you, Mr. Teasdale.
Thank you.
Panel members, do you have any questions for Mr. Teasdale? Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Teasdale. Just a couple of points of clarity. What secondary school does your daughter go to?
So currently my daughter goes to Thomas Wharton. Unfortunately, places have been also limited at Balby Car, so we ended up being given the school that was allocated to us. The concern that we've got, especially with my 8-year-old, is we have genuine concerns whether they will still be in the same high school, because we've got friends and neighbours with children that are having to transport them, into the centre of Doncaster for schools over this way, because they just can't get places.
And what primary does your other daughter go to?
She goes to Wormsworth Primary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from...
Can you just give me a brief outline at Alverley Lane? I understand, I think you touched on it, all the houses are drives back onto Alverley Lane, so cars would have to back out onto there. And does a lot of cars actually park on the roadsides as well?
Right, good question. So, yes, vehicles have to reverse out onto this road. Because the road is already not, I don't believe is wide enough, there's no middle lines down the road. So it's already been acknowledged that there's an issue. They're also removing a speed reducer. So there's 2 islands on the road. They're reducing one. I know local residents have turned round and they've fought to get these implemented. And now one's actually been removed. Now, so living on Alverley Lane...
Sorry, Mr. T, the question's around, around the road and layout and stuff. If it's directed to Highsway...
Sorry. So the layout itself, yes, you've got to back out onto the main road. I would say in a standard morning, when we're backing out onto the road, we've got to wait for a gap in the stud traffic for Tickhill Road before we can actually get out onto the road. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Teasdale? Councillor Wood?
You mentioned another development that's already got planning approval that's going to contribute to the school system. Can you just repeat which planning application we're talking about?
Yeah, so that planning is called Dagenham Glade. It's on Broomhouse Lane. It's less than a mile from where this is expected to be done, from Alveley Lane, of 375 properties. If you also take a look at the Dominion estate, that was originally set up for 1,800 properties, and I believe there's either the third or fourth phase of these properties to actually be built, and it's not being finished.
Anything further, Councillor Wood?
And the plots we're talking about, or the things that have had planning already approved, are they going to contribute to the same school as what you're saying is already?
So Councillor Wood, I don't think Mr Teasdale's in a position to answer that. If that's directed towards the education team, they'll be able to clarify that.
I'm all right to think that the properties that you just described...
They are within the boundary of them schools, yes.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions for Mr Teasdale? Mr Teasdale, thank you very much. You're more than welcome to stay seated there. You can go back to where you were before.
Can I got past a post-it note, if you don't mind. There were a correction about Farm Grange.
Mr Teasdale, you had 5 minutes.
Is that my 5 minutes?
Your 5 minutes is up, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Councillor Crucian, ward members also requested to speak. You've got 5 minutes. When you're ready, please press the red button and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining. Okay?
Lovely, thank you. Good afternoon, fellow councillors. Good afternoon, residents. As a Balby South councillor, I stand firmly against the proposed development on Alveley Lane. And this is echoing the resounding concerns of the voting constituents and many others in the ward. Our community is, I would say, at the breaking point. Alveley Lane, much like Hextorp and now Balby South, is starting to resemble pretty much a dystopian residential sprawl, with buildings crowding out what little green space we have. And it's a simple question: where can our children play at the end of the day? And where can our young people express themselves? We literally have no youth centers, and the demolition of a local school, as mentioned earlier, to give room to yet another development, has robbed the community of vital resources. We cannot sacrifice more, to say the least. Most of our essential services like healthcare, leisure, and support are located outside the ward, and this is forcing residents to travel for basic needs. This external reliance stretches our community thin, and adding more homes will only deepen the strain. Balby South is now showing the same troubling symptoms as Hextorp: overstretched resources and growing community tensions. Without investment in local services, integration of newcomers is faltering, and it's risking further divisions. Our infrastructure is buckling, and Alveley Lane is a traffic inferno, as I've seen personally, with roads utterly unprepared for current demand, let alone the chaos of another development. The necessities of today, like roads, public transport, community facilities, have not kept pace, and this proposal ignores this reality. This development is a step too far, I'd say. It erases precious green spaces, ignores the needs of our children and youth, and piles pressure on our already failing infrastructure. My constituents are clear. They demand a ward that prioritizes their quality of life, not one that buries it under concrete for profit. Should the development proceed despite our efforts to halt it, the administration must prioritize preserving ample green spaces to benefit both the development and the surrounding areas, while ensuring Alveley Lane is widened and the intersection with Dicko Road is effectively managed to accommodate traffic demands. Ultimately, I urge this council, this committee, to reject the Alveley Lane proposal. Let's protect our green spaces, bring services back into the ward, and build a community that works for all. I'd say enough is enough. No more developments until our ward can breathe again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments? Mr. Stephen Corsier and Mr. Adam Bradley have requested to speak in support of the application. Would you like to come forward to the front bench, please? You have 5 minutes between you, and once you're ready to speak, please press the red button to start.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. This application has been recommended for approval, and we fully endorse your officer's recommendation and conclusion. Firstly, we would like to take the opportunity to thank your officers for their work on the planning application for the past 3 years. We have worked collaboratively with them since the pre-application stage, and their input throughout the process has been invaluable and has resulted in a scheme currently in front of you. The application site is identified as a housing allocation within your local plan, which was adopted by the Council in 2021. Therefore, the Council has already deemed the site to be fully developable and the principal residential development to be acceptable. The local plan process provides for a rigorous analysis of sites as part of the allocation. This planning application over the last few years has also had the same rigorous assessment by your officers. The application scheme would deliver significant economic, social and environmental benefits, several of which address existing issues and concerns. These include the provision of 143 market houses and 43 affordable dwellings. At the moment, there's no public access to land, but the proposal will provide 1 hectare of public open space and a play area and a trim trail for the local community. Delivery of a potential new pedestrian cycle link onto the greenway to the south. Significant level of new tree and hedgerow planting and improvements to biodiversity. And the delivery of a number of off-site highway and public transport improvements. We therefore respectfully request that members support the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission for the application proposals in order to quickly deliver the significant benefits of the scheme. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Adam Bradley. I'm an associate at Brian G. Hall Transport Consultants. My team and I have provided technical support on this application, liaising with your highways officers. The development of 186 dwellings on what is an allocated site will take access from a new priority junction with Alverley Lane. The site is accessible by sustainable modes of transport, particularly by walking and cycling. A new footway will be constructed along the southern side of Alverley Lane, and a series of pedestrian footpaths will then be constructed through green space connecting to an existing footway on Alverley Lane to the west of the site, and to the pedestrian and cycle route that runs along the southern boundary of the site. The Alverley Lane A60 Tickle Road junction has been at the forefront of our discussions with your highways officers. Our assessment of the junction has demonstrated that there is already a need for the junction to be improved. The proposed signalisation of the junction will provide green man crossing facilities across Tickhill Road to the north and south of the junction, providing a significant road safety improvement for pedestrians accessing the bus stops on both sides of the carriageway. The signals will also make it easier for pedestrians to cross Alverley Lane, given the gaps in traffic that will be created by the signals. In terms of capacity, the proposed signal scheme is predicted to operate considerably better than the existing junction would in the future year, even with the additional development traffic. Our improvements will result in a significant reduction in queue to around a third of what it would be without the improvements, and a reduction in delay from well over 6 minutes down to around 1 minute 20 seconds. Junction assessments undertaken for the other junctions in the vicinity of the site have demonstrated that they have sufficient capacity to accommodate the traffic associated with the development. All of the technical work undertaken in support of the application has been thoroughly reviewed by your highways officers, who are satisfied that the signals are safe and will reduce congestion. As set out in your planning officer's report, the improvement works at the Alverley Lane junction with Tickhill Road are achievable and would reduce congestion and improve road safety at the junction. In addition to the Alverley Lane Tickhill Road improvement, the applicant has agreed to provide bus stop improvements on Tickhill Road and Springwell Lane, which will include footway improvements and the introduction of real-time passenger information at 3 bus stops, along with making a contribution to support the existing bus stops in the vicinity of the site. In summary, it's been agreed with your officers that subject to the mitigation proposed, this allocated residential site can be safely and sustainably accessed. Thank you very much for listening and giving this application your consideration.
Thank you. Do any panel members have any questions for the agent or the highways consultant? Councillor Plater.
Thank you, Chair. This development seeks to put even more traffic onto roads which are already very busy and in some parts quite narrow. What is being done to mitigate any problems which I can anticipate and which you should have anticipated?
In terms of issues on Alverley Lane, so Alverley Lane's currently 20 mile an hour. The speed chicanes that are currently there will be retained as part of the scheme. And the signalisation should reduce the queuing that's experienced now. So the highway is deemed acceptable in terms of what it's anticipated to facilitate.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Wood?
Are you proposing Yorkshire Water is going to adopt this system when it's completed?
That is the intention, yes.
So, looking at the consultations, Yorkshire Water have had a really strong objection against the site due to flooding concerns. Sorry, the way that the water is going to run off the site. And the talk about, just bear with me, sorry. The talk about at some point the latest response from your consultancy firm that you used, but when I've looked for it on the website, I can't find it. When was the latest consultation that you put into Yorkshire Water for them to approve, please?
That might be best directed to the planning officer, but I can confirm we resolved the Yorkshire Water's concerns about the scheme, and they confirmed in the last consultation response they had no objections to the proposal.
Is that after the 30th of April-ish?
We believe so, yes.
Councillor Cox?
Sorry, you've just said regarding water, and I think the wording and it's in 7.67, it says insufficient capacity. Was the meeting, or was it a conversation with Yorkshire Water, or is it something that's been documented that can be followed through?
They have formally responded as a formal consultation response to the application, so it will be on the public file as part of the planning application.
Any other questions? Councillor Dennis, then Councillor Wood.
Thank you. Aside from the formal planning application process, has there been any consultation with residents in and around the Tickle Road, Alverley Lane junction as to the proposed works happening there?
At the start of the application, we did do a leaflet drop to surrounding residents. Yes, so there has been a public consultation outside of the planning application.
That was at the start of the application, so before the traffic light system was proposed? Yes, that was, yes. So we've through the iteration and discussions with local authority, we've evolved that scheme, and that evolved the scheme and come to the solution which resolves that issue around the capacity. So that's come out through our work with our highway officers, that solution. So there's been no public consultation on the traffic light system or the banning of right turns from Tickle Road onto Alverley Lane? There would have been as part of the planning application, but we've not done any separate consultation. Obviously, when we've submitted any planning documents, they've gone on to public access and members of the public can view those and put comments into that information. I'll say that I'm quite a nerd and I'll look at planning application stuff. However, the vast majority of residents won't be actively looking for alterations to applications, especially if they already reviewed those. I'd also say that residents off of Alverley Lane, Melford and all those other streets will be impacted by the banning of right turns from Tickle Road onto Alverley Lane. And I think it's a failing of the developer that there hasn't been a public consultation specifically on this junction. I think it's very difficult once a planning application is submitted. Obviously, we don't want to seen as circumventing the normal process. Once a planning application is submitted, you have to go to a formal process of submitting the information, and that information is consulted upon by the council.
if we try running a separate in parallel consultation on these things, it blurs the lines of who local residents should be responding to. I think that's the difficulty. It's not normal procedure. Once a planning application is submitted, then to go to a separate consultation outside that.
But if this, sorry, Chair, let me just carry on. If this application is approved, the junction will be approved. And so there won't have been any public consultation for that junction. And this will be the last thing I say on it. I do think there should have been a public consultation, and residents will have a shock when they find out about the junction and no right turns.
The junction arrangement will go through a Section 278 process where that is refined. And as part of the banning of movements and weight restrictions, that goes through a formal traffic regulation order process. And that goes through a period of consultation as well. And that will be run by the local authority.
I'm going to bring in Councillor Wood, Councillor Kidger, then Councillor Cox. Councillor Wood, are you okay? So, Councillor Kidger?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wonder who made the decision and why to increase the planning density from 150 houses to 186?
As mentioned by your planning officer and set out in the committee report, the 150 dwellings is only indicative. It's an indicative capacity set out is for the council's purposes for calculating the house and land supply. It's not meant to set the number of dwellings which can come forward on an allocation. When we've done the master planning of the site, it became clear that the site can achieve 184 dwellings and still deliver the council's requirements in terms of public open space and biodiversity and housing mix requirements. Like the scheme's at a density level of 27 dwellings per hectare, which is quite low. You would normally on a suburban scheme be achieving around about 30 dwellings per hectare. So it is a low density scheme. Obviously, the benefits for the council is, by delivering some additional housing on this site, helps the council with its housing land supply, helps to protect itself from speculative planning applications in the future.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Councillor Cox. Councillor Kidger, could you turn your microphone off as well, please?
Are you finished?
Yeah, good.
When would you like to start building on this site?
I think the intention, we will obviously, subject to securing planning permission, hopefully today, we'd have to go through discharge conditions, and I think what was mentioned by one of your local residents, as part of that we have to produce a construction management plan that will be consulted upon, so members of the local community can comment on that and have input into that. So you would probably expect condition discharge to take around about 6 to 9 months, and then you would have the prelims, so you would hopefully first spade in the ground in probably 12 months' time.
Would Yorkshire Water have done all of their changes to foul and surface water in that time? Because at this point in time, you don't even know where they are, the problems.
Yeah, we would have to engage with Yorkshire Water in those discussions. Obviously, Yorkshire Water are under, because this is an allocation, they are under an obligation to provide capacity, so they have to provide capacity for the allocation, because obviously it's required to meet Doncaster's housing numbers, meet the housing need.
And I completely understand what you're saying. And obviously, with the new MPPF changes and everything else that you're looking at, we are potentially putting a company or business that has to supply something, such as water, under more pressure with less time to get it done. I'm confused in that. I mean, you obviously, there's policies to stick by, which you have to, everybody does. But these policies are being pushed to a limit.
I think that was more comment than a question. Any, Councillor Dennis?
Thank you. Why is there no safe crossing point over Alveley Lane from your development?
Is that in reference to the junction or along Alveley Lane? Sorry.
Along Alveley Lane.
So, as I said previously, Alveley Lane is 20 mile an hour, and the development is forming an extension to the already residential area. The number of drop crossings associated with private drives along there offers the opportunity for people to cross Alveley Lane. And given the low speed, the necessity for a crossing is negligible. It's providing specific crossing points rather than allowing that permeability. It could be a restriction to pedestrian movement rather than just providing the ability to cross along Alveley Lane.
To me, that sounds like you're saying people can cross as and when it's safe to do so. So it's their own judgment.
Essentially, yes. I mean, the provision would be a drop crossing with tactile paving. There would be very little demand for a zebra crossing or a pedestrian crossing with signals. So it would only be a drop crossing with tactile paving, which could be provided anywhere along Alveley Lane where there's gaps between driveways.
So, Councillor Dennis, if I can come in, would the speed bumps along Alveley Lane, would they help or hinder pedestrians from crossing?
Speed tables can be useful to provide crossing facilities. Fitting them in between the driveways that exist on Alveley Lane might be a challenge. It's not something that's been considered or has been requested by the highways officers. My
understanding and what I'm referencing, there's existing speed bumps along Alveley Lane, is there not? No?
There are two chicanes which have they restrict one direction of traffic, and then there is a speed bump that they pass over as they continue their journey. Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. There's no continuous footpath along Alveley Lane. If you were travelling from your development up Alveley Lane, you would have to cross over to the other side to then safely get onto Tickhill Road. If there's quite a large tailback from the lights, pedestrians would have to go in between the traffic that's coming down Alveley Lane, as well as then walking between the stationary cars awaiting at the lights. Has that been flagged up in any of the travel assessments?
The need for a crossing hasn't been flagged up by highways officers, and the ability for pedestrians to move is being considered acceptable. The lack of footway has been considered, but the opportunity to provide footway doesn't exist because the land is outside of highways ownership. So there isn't an opportunity to provide that footway. We are providing the footway along the frontage and further to the west down Alveley Lane to connect with the existing provision, and that extends as far as it possibly can along the frontage.
Thank you. And then the last point from me, it's more a wider policy point for our council colleagues, is that there's been significant effort to accommodate cars as part of this development and make the junction at Alveley Lane and Tickhill Road better for cars, but that the pedestrian safety aspect has been compromised in my view, and I think it's not a good viewpoint to have when we consider sustainability of travel going forward as well.
Any further questions? I'm going to ask officers if they want to clarify any matters of fact.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just very briefly. It's been said already a number of times, but it does just bear repeating. You know that this site is allocated in the local plan adopted in 2021, and the legislation requires us to make our planning decisions in accordance with the adopted development plan. So just do have that in mind as we move forward into debate. And I would also make the point that this is a private site. It's not publicly available as open space. to anyone using it in the community. So do have that in mind. You'll be aware that each case must be judged on its own merits, so the things you've heard around impacts of other developments coming forward, those developments have been assessed and any mitigation that they required has been put in place, and the same for this scheme. It's about looking at the mitigation that's required to make this development acceptable rather than others that might have gone before it. A couple of very detailed specific points. There was mention of the construction traffic management plan. If planning permission is granted, that comes to us for approval. It usually includes provision around how residents can make contact with the main point of contact so that they've got a mechanism for flagging any concerns or breaches that come in, and that would also be available through the council's website. And just very briefly, Yorkshire Water have no objections remaining to the scheme. Paragraph 4.8 at page 78 of your papers confirms that. And there was a little bit of discussion, Chair, around consultation. That's been dealt with, but just to make members aware that each time there was an amendment to the planning application, as it's gone through the process, the council reconsults people as part of that, so they're given further opportunities to make their comments known when amendments are made to a scheme. Thank you.
Does anybody from Highways want to comment on any aspect of this?
If I just pick up on the last one about the pedestrian movement along Alverley Lane, it is obviously as it is now. It's just as challenging crossing over with the vehicles at the moment. The provision of the additional footpath up one side, it is limited to how far it can go. Provision of a crossing on this kind of road would be very unusual. If you look around where crossings are provided, the access across Tickhill Road, clearly there's not one there now, and this will provide an excellent opportunity for pedestrians to cross over a busier road than Alverley Lane. And the important thing is to try and make it as easy as possible for people to cross Alverley Lane along that stretch. What you tend to find is people won't necessarily congregate to one point, but they'll choose to cross where they feel as if they've got a good sight line. They can assess the traffic. I think there's a big challenge of that area as a whole, where we know for quite some time the Alverley Lane junction provides issues, and what this does is it does improve what's there at the moment. It will mean obviously some journeys will be slightly longer by going around the roundabout at Woodfield Plantation, but it should improve the safety aspect of it as well. So it's trying to find that right balance. And in terms of from our highways point of view, we've assessed the application as a whole and said we think the provision that they're putting in as part of this is satisfactory. It's not perfect because of the layout of the particular area.
Thank you. Committee members will now go into debate. Does any member wish to comment on the report? Ask our planning officer any questions. Councillor Kidger, then Councillor Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I say earlier on a question was asked about site management and the environmental plan, and I can see this being an ongoing question. Would officers like to give the good people an assurance that officers will monitor and enforce where necessary a similar site action plan to that one?
What I would say to residents is if they feel that there are any breaches occurring at any time of any of the conditions we impose, to contact planning enforcement and they will be investigated and any breaches resolved. It's every case on its own merits when we get those, but we need to know that breaches are occurring in order to investigate.
We've got it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for your answer. All I can say, that is not the experience I'm getting feedback from my ward members.
Yeah, this is one for highways. One of the objections is there's been a number of road traffic accidents in Alverley Lane. I just wondered if you could give me more information on that or elaborate a bit more on that, please.
Yes. Over the last 5 years, there's been 10 incidents along between the signals at Sanford Road, Sanford Road and Westfield Park, and the Woodfield Plantation, of which 4 was classed as serious and 6 were slight. 4, yes.
So were they at the junction of Alverley, that junction in particular, or was that along the whole of Sanford Road?
That was on the whole of Sanford Road. There's actually 5 of them were at the junction of Alverley Lane, which one was serious and the others were minor.
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't know about the rest of the panel, but I just feel a site visit would be really beneficial for us all. Yeah, I'd like to move that, propose that, yeah. The level of traffic I'd like to see now before the development, continues, and just to get a proper layout. I feel it'd be beneficial for the whole panel. Yeah, so I'd like to propose a site visit.
So that's proposed by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Kitcher. If we carry on with the rest of the debate, then we'll move to that afterwards. Yeah. Are there any other questions for any of the officers? Councillor Wood, sorry.
Education. There's no mention in the park of how many spaces are available at the upper school, the secondary school. Can you confirm what the current capacity is there, please?
Hi, yes, it's a 210 per year group capacity at the secondary school. Can I just give a little bit of an overview in terms of every school across the country is allocated a catchment area, and our illustrations that we bid towards are based on the catchment of the school. So this development falls into the catchment of Mallard Primary School and of Australia Academy Woodfields. Both of those schools have sufficient capacity to be able to facilitate the pupil numbers generated from this development. We are acutely aware of some clusters within the pyramid of some schools that are popular and oversubscribed. However, because there is sufficient capacity, significant sufficient capacity across the pyramid, we would risk the sustainability of existing schools if we were to expand elsewhere, if that makes sense.
So, if there's another development due in next, say, 6 months, how many places are available before that development's going to be looking at paying Section 106?
So that would be a continuous method. So we reassess based on every development that comes forward. Every assessment that we do includes any other developments that are in the planning process, that have actually put a planning application forward, not in the pre-app process, actually in the planning process. So all of those for that catchment school are included. What we can't do is include pupils that don't impact that catchment school. So it's based on that catchment model, and it does. So we will continue to assess. Obviously, for this development, we have sufficient capacity. It may be at the point in time of the next development that may change. An assessment at that point will decide that.
So, are you aware of any more developments that are going through at the moment where Section 106 is going to be affecting that particular secondary school?
I don't have the data with me at the moment, but we do have all of that on file.
Any other questions? Councillor Wood?
If you can draw yourself to 23/01759/OUTM, just making a note of that for future.
So is that a different planning?
I just want to be aware of it. That's what I'm asking for, because he says he's not aware of anything. I'm just making him aware of something that might be something to consider.
Okay, we do have records of everything on file. I just don't have it with me in front of me today. That's all.
So if that's a different planning application, then outside of the meeting, just drop the officer a line and make him aware, so it stays on his radar, but it doesn't have any relevance to the meeting here today. Any other questions, Councillor Wood?
Yeah. I'm looking at a document. Just bear with me 1 second. The Doncaster Green Infrastructure Strategy 2014 to 2028. And it talks about Bowlby. And it talks specifically about green space and provisions for green space in different areas. And in Bowlby, it's actually been identified as an area that has a deficiency. Where are we getting the quote time? There's a deficiency of 10 hectares informal open space. So can anybody explain why we're building more houses knowing that there's already a shortfall in green space?
I think as one of the planning officers already clarified that this is it's privately held land which has been built upon, so it doesn't, residents wouldn't have that same access, but I'll let the planning officer clarify.
Thank you, Chair. If you go to paragraph 7.22 of the committee report, it highlights that the green space audit does highlight the need to increase the amount of informal and formal open space and children's play equipment, and the development would contribute directly towards delivering that requirement. Thank you.
But am I right in thinking that there's supposed to be like a walking distance for this green space? Because as you look at Bowlby, it seems to be getting bigger, and the green space being sparser and more difficult to find and get to.
The key thing here is that this is not existing green space. This isn't green space.
No.
It's green field land, but it's not public green space that the public can use. It's a privately owned parcel of land that is allocated for housing, not allocated as public open space. If somebody wanted to build on public open space, then that would be part of the assessment, but this is not what this is an assessment of. It's an assessment of a private parcel of land allocated for housing.
What I'm getting at is there's already a shortage of green space, and we've just put another 150 houses on there. That's what I'm getting at.
Yes, and this application would contribute to giving towards the green space for Bowlby South by providing the play equipment and the kickabout space and the trim trail equipment and the connections onto the wider public open space at Springwell Plantation and beyond by the Bridle Way.
So the passage through the estate onto the green belt is what effectively is the benefit to the community.
And the play equipment, the play area, that there isn't one presently within walking distance, except if you cross over onto Tickhill Road. By providing this play area in this location, the residents on Alveley Lane wouldn't need to cross onto Tickhill Road to access play equipment.
Thank you, Chair.
Just so we're clear, how much public open space does the development bring then, including the park?
It meets the requirements of I think it's 15%.
I think the guy said 1 hectare.
Panel, any other questions? Councillor Crutchin, you've as a speaker, you're not able to ask any other further questions, I'm afraid. Apologies.
I did reduce my speech as much as possible.
Sorry?
So maybe 30 seconds to ask.
So, but the time when it's allocated, the 5 minutes, that's the time to ask these questions and raise these points. Sorry, apologies. There was a proposal by Councillor Anderson, which is seconded by Councillor Kitcher. Can you just clarify the reasons for the site visit, what we're looking at the site visit?
Yeah, I just want to propose a site visit to look at the level of traffic before the development, understand the layout more, and because I have got major concerns with the traffic issues, so it's just to look at the layout, understand the layout more, and look at the levels of traffic at the moment before the development. Yeah.
Chair, if you don't mind me just coming in there, what I would just caution members on is making sure we're referring to objective evidence when we've been on site. If that's what members decide to do and come back into the chamber to make the decision, it wouldn't be robust evidence to say you've stood on that junction and seen lots of cars or there's been a traffic jam or anything like that. What we need to be doing when we're going out on site is looking at features on the ground. So we will walk you through all of that when we're out on site, but it's the facts on the ground that you're looking to understand. And what we'll also do as part of that is have an explanation of how the access will work physically in terms of serving the development. It would also be good to understand from members what time the site visit would be best undertaken in terms of understanding those features on the ground and the traffic that's travelling around that area.
Yeah, just like I say, I totally understand highways have been out to monitor that, but we haven't, and we are the panel that are making the decisions. So, and I don't know, propose a time when schools are coming out, that sort of time. Yeah.
Councillor Cox, Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. And obviously been to many site visits and always found them extremely useful to understand how the layout actually fits. So completely get what Emma said, but hang on.
Councillor Dennis.
I know I banged on a bit about highway stuff and critical of the developer's position on it. However, I don't know how beneficial a site visit would be for members to decide, because the highways officer that was looking at the transport assessments made the developer go back and do in total 3 traffic assessments at the area to make sure it had robust data. As untrained people, I don't know how much weight us going and seeing that area where the traffic would have for us. Where I would want to see the impact on this site is on the pavement areas and the safe travel of pedestrians over Alveley Lane. However, if there's no concerns from highways officers in that regard, I can't really go out and say, oh, this is going to be an issue, because highways have said, well, actually, it's not an issue. But yeah, that's my views.
It's a very valid point you raised there, Councillor Dennison, that if highways are not objecting and the developers met the requirements of highways, then it might be limited what the panel is able to ascertain or determine by making that site visit. That being said, Councillor Anderson has proposed a site visit and Councillor Kidger has seconded that, so it needs to go to a vote. Those in favour of a site visit, please raise your hands. Hi, please, so we can... 6, okay. And those against?
2, 3.
So is there an abstention, or is my maths wrong? Yeah, someone hasn't.
Someone hasn't voted.
Yeah, someone hasn't voted.
Can we do that again? Those in favour of a site visit, please, hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6. And those who were against?
Sorry, Councillor Lawson.
Councillor Lawson, are you aware what you're voting on? It's about the site visit.
Sorry. Right, let's do this again. We're voting on the motion that Councillor Anderson has put forward, which is a site visit. So those in favour, put your hands high up in the air so we can count you, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. And those against?
Those against?
1, 2, 3. Yep, thank you.
That makes up the 10. Thank you. Right, so that application has been deferred until a site visit is arranged. Thank you, panel. Panel, would you like to take a 5-minute break before we move on to the next application? 10. Should we be generous with time? 10 minutes? Yeah? Okay, 10 minutes. So we'll come back in at 3:45. We'll move on to application number 3, 25000817 COU, change of use from Class C3 residential to Class C2 children's care home, 3 children at 84 Sargison Road, Armthorpe, Doncaster. Nicola Harworth is the planning officer, and I'll ask Nicola to introduce this item.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just do the pre-committee amendments. There's a report correction, para 7.29 refers to paragraph 115 of the MPPF. It is paragraph 116 of the MPPF. There's also been a further resident objection received, and also a further detailed representation has been submitted from an existing objector in response to the highway consultation comments. The application is for a change of use of a residential property which is a Class C3 to a Class C2 children's care home at 84 Sargison Road, Armthorpe. The application is being presented to committee due to the level of public interest. Concerns raised include traffic impacts, an increase on on-street car parking, potential increase in disturbance and potential negative impacts on residential amenity and resident safety. The property will accommodate a maximum of 3 residential children aged between the 8 to 17. The home will provide supported care and accommodation. No other facilities are proposed other than those which are found in a typical family home. The premises will be staffed on a one-to-one basis, 24 hours a day. The operator has confirmed that shift changes will be staggered. The application site resides within a residential policy area in the local plan. Therefore, the proposal is acceptable in principle, provided that there is no adverse harm to residential, visual amenity and the environment. The site is a 4-bedroom detached 2-storey property located within a small courtyard of 4 houses. The site can cater for 4 vehicles if required, as the existing property has 2 existing garages as well as 2 designated spaces in front of the garage doors. The Council's Highways Officer does not raise any objection to the proposal, and there is sufficient number of on-site car parking spaces available to meet local plan requirements, and has advised that any on-street parking for visitors for all these properties can be provided on the adopted highway, and this is not an unusual occurrence and would have no adverse effects on highway safety. In terms of layout, there are no changes externally. Internally, 3 of the bedrooms will be used by young persons, and 2 bedrooms, 1 new bedroom to be created downstairs, will be used for the staff. The impacts of the use are considered similar to those of a larger single household in terms of comings and goings. The detached style of the existing property limits the potential for noise disturbance on neighbours. It has good separation distance from neighbours. The garden area is securely fenced. The one-to-one supervision will ensure that the children are suitably supervised, which will also help by reducing any impact on the amenity of neighbours. There are no technical consultee objections. South Yorkshire Police have requested the installation of a number of security measures, which are conditioned together with a number of staff and children. There's just some site photos. That's just the front with the 2 spaces. The kitchen, dining room, utility room, living room, the family room, which is to be converted to a bedroom, downstairs toilet, ensuite shower room to master bedroom, main bathroom, master bedroom, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, bedroom 4. And that's just a photograph of the garage. That's the rear garden area. That's the rear garden area again. As you can see, it's enclosed by fencing. And that's just the side. And that's just another shot of the front. And that's the other side of the parking court with the other double garage. Concerns have been raised by residents about on-street car parking and also blocking in of residents. And cars aren't always parked within the designated car parking spaces. And some are parked immediately in front of properties, causing obstruction with the turning area. However, this is not a problem that can ultimately be resolved by this determination of this specific planning application, and it's a situation that currently exists on the estate and is a civil matter. And this is the off-road parking court for the properties opposite the site, numbers 95 to 101 Sargison Road. As you can see, it's got adequate car parking for residents, and it looks there's 2 spaces per property. In terms of conclusions, the site is located within a suitable and sustainable location for the use proposed, and on review of the details, it would not give rise to any unacceptable residential impacts. There have been no technical objections to the proposal, including the police, the Environmental Health Officer, Children's Commissioning and the Highway Authority. Overall, it is considered that the nature and the scale of the use would be similar to the occupation of the building as a larger residential household, and as such, the amenity impacts on neighbouring residents would not be demonstrably different or harmful. Planning conditions would control the number of staff and children on the site to ensure that the use does not intensify. It's therefore recommended for approval subject to planning conditions.
Thank you, Nicola. I understand Mr. Nelson and Mr. Kimber are here today. Would you like to come to the front bench, please? And you've got 5 minutes between you to speak. When you're ready to speak, please press the red button and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
We are constantly being told that there is a housing crisis in the United Kingdom. The Doncaster Housing Strategy Update 2020 to 25 states that the government must build over 300,000 new homes every year, and the local Doncaster plan annual target is at over 900 new homes. So why are we taking a perfectly good family home out of the supply chain? The National Office for National Statistics stated in 2023 there was over 7,000 empty homes in Doncaster, approximately 5% of the Doncaster housing stock, with only 5 being brought back into occupation over the past 5 years. There is an opportunity here to utilise one of these properties and reduce the amount of empty homes, and there are even grants available from the council. And as an example, there is a house on Church Street in Armthorpe that is boarded up, that used to be a vet, so it's obviously already gone through the change of use. Sheffield City Region White Paper states that Doncaster should support existing urban centres threatened by economic change by reusing space in urban areas like town centres as places to live. And again, there's government funding for this. And there's plenty of suitable commercial premises available. The Armthorpe Action Plan on Housing states, owing to the current economic circumstances, many young people are leaving Armthorpe, partly because of the lack of affordable housing within the parish. If the community spirit is to be secured for the future, there is a need to ensure that these people born and bred in Armthorpe can afford to remain in the village if they so wish. On the new estates being built in Armthorpe, all on Greenbelt, the average price of a 4-bedroom house is £380,000, clearly not affordable. But on the Pit Top estate, which where this property is, it's approximately £300,000. Again, why are we considering removing affordable housing? Doncaster Talks carried out a consultation and gathered views on residents' housing issues. The main points were having housing with good community spirit located in quite safe areas. Having the park within the estate is a great addition, but it does attract antisocial behaviour. Kids on motorbikes not wearing helmets, tearing around the park every day, alcohol abuse, drug dealing and gathering of kids during the school holidays. Having this proposal so close to the park, it will only attract and add to the already out-of-control issue. The Council's vision and priority aims for 2025 is that residents have the right to live in a safe and secure homes. Going back to Doncaster Housing Strategy, it emphasises how access to good, safe, secure housing is one of the most effective ways of improving our health and well-being, and clearly having this so close to neighbouring homes, families with young children, will massively affect people's mental health beings. I myself, due to a long military career operating in many theatres, have my own demons to deal with. My property borders this, and I am very worried about confrontation and the anxiety this will cause. The planning application states there will be dusk-to-dawn security lighting. This will obviously affect my property and the neighbours. It also states that the secure fencing, this is incorrect. Over the past 10 years, Doncaster Council has invested over 160 million of taxpayers' money into housing. So again, why are we considering removing a perfectly usable, affordable home? The whole idea to change this to resident property goes against all of Doncaster Council's housing policies on future strategies and white papers. It reduces the housing supply and increases house prices and rents. Thank you.
Hi. So there's a clear demand within Doncaster for residential housing within Armthorpe and the surrounding areas that we've seen today. And mimicking what you've just said there, it's a perfectly good family home that's affordable. But what I feel like the company's doing are buying neighbouring properties and then they're using it as a property portfolio because they do have several care homes within the community already. The neighbouring properties where you've mentioned about the turning circle, that doesn't actually belong to the property. That is actually leasehold. It is actually a turning circle. It's not the allocated parking. There's also TP1 documents from the land registry for when the properties were built that prevents the use for any of the buildings to be of a business, hence why we're here today. The crime in the local area it's rife. It's linked to knife crime, there's drug-related crimes, and the police report doesn't reflect the day-to-day living of actually living on the development. I've got some data from streetscan.co.uk, and that classifies Sargison Road as severe.
You've got 30 seconds remaining.
So there's several homes bought by the company, as I've mentioned, and I also feel that the size of the property, I think there'll be further development for them to actually add more children to the home, especially with the detached garages, which also poses further bedrooms. And like as I've mentioned, they have got several properties within the area already. I think there's 4 in Armthorpe already. Thank you.
Thank you. If you turn your microphone off as well, please, sir. Thank you very much. If you remain seated there, have any panel members got any questions for Mr Nelson or Mr Kimber? Councillor Cox.
Could I just ask why you think that these young people are going to bring criminality to the area?
It's through previous experience, and obviously doing the kind of role I do, I have worked within the facilities, and the kind of security measures that are in place when you go into these homes are obviously, they are quite high with, you know, locked doors, security cameras, certain things having to be in certain rooms. So my understanding is if that's the case and the police are having to put measures in place as well, these children must have some sort of difficulties if these security measures are being implemented.
I'm going to bring
Sorry,
in...
can I just... Also, I believe that these children are going to be going to school, they are going to have mobile phones, they are going to be contacting their friends, you know, which will attract more people to the area for criminality.
I'm going to bring Councillor Cox back in first and then other councillors.
Thank you, Chair. Would that not be within the remit of any young person to have a mobile phone and exist?
Yeah, but not all young people are in that situation. Most young people are upstanding members of the community.
I'll just add to that one as well. These children, unfortunately, haven't had the best start in life either.
Councillor Anderson.
That's exactly why we should be supporting them. One of the things you've just said there. You've said there's already criminality, drug dealing, everything. So what sort of houses do these residents live in?
There's certain developments within the area that attract to the local development that we're on.
So it's my point, it's not just all people that live in care homes, yeah, so I'm going to stop that.
No, I understand these children do need to be housed, and I just think they need to be housed in areas and dwellings that are empty, that do need to be occupied. There's perfectly good opportunities within Armthorpe of detached dwellings with adequate parking that already have business use.
Councillor Plater, did you indicate, sorry, or did I see somebody else's hand?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you tell us where these children, young people, will be coming from? What area of the country?
So I don't think the residents would be able to answer that question, Councillor Plater, because it's down to the care home to then, you know, bring children in. But I think the point you're trying to raise is that it's unknown what the background of these children is, if they come from criminality or not, if they are upstanding citizens of the community, or what the background is, the reason why they're in care. They're unknowns at the moment, so no one's able to answer that other than at the time when the children are placed in care. Any other questions from the panel?
Can I finish?
Sorry, Councillor Plater.
Can you tell us, will there be any child or young person accommodated in this house who's been committed into care by a court?
Councillor, these are local residents. Your questions seem to me to be more aptly placed to the applicant, who I think is going to speak next. So these are local residents, they're not going to be able to answer that question. Okay.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you. Whereabouts in Armthorpe would you suggest that they went?
There's an empty unit actually on Church Street, which is, you've referred to yourself, which is an empty ex-veterinary unit, which would house it perfectly fine because it's within commercial area as well, so it's not so much residential, but it's residential stroke business, I would say.
And that's also next to a busy road. It's also, which it is, the vets. You've got petrol station, you've got all the things going off there near a park, near a football ground. So kids are still going to congregate wherever they are.
But there is also the community centre next door, which can obviously help facilitate these children and rehabilitate them, which is what I'm understanding it's for.
I think the issue that we're trying to get to is that we're taking out a perfectly affordable home for a family with 2-3 kids. We're not arguing that these children shouldn't be housed somewhere. We're arguing that we're taking out a perfectly serviceable, affordable residential property when there's a housing crisis.
And on the back of that, you've got empty business units that are ripe for conversion for what these people are wanting to use them for.
I'm going to bring in Councillor Cox again, then Councillor Dennis.
Are you suggesting that these young people should be living within an industrial unit?
It used to be, actually, it's got an apartment upstairs, so it's mixed use to the actual unit that I'm referring to, but there is others within Armthorpe that aren't actual in a commercial centre as such. This one isn't. It's on the main road. There is other residential properties nearby.
Originally, it was a property, it was a house, and it's a large house, and it only borders other residentials on one side. It was an old property, an old house.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. What the planning committee will be looking at is on the merits and demerits of the application in front of us, and not necessarily whether there's other suitable properties in the vicinity. That's not what we can consider. We also can't consider the behavioural challenges or positives of the children.
Sorry, Councillor Dennis, maybe no behavioural challenges or no issues.
Precisely, yeah.
Or maybe it's just health issues, or maybe it's constant care that's required.
Exactly. We can't prejudge who will be in that house, in that property. And even if the committee approves, the home would be subject to, I believe, that CQC approval. So there'll be another body ahead of us to judge whether that property and that business is suitable to have children there. So I think a lot of the matters you've discussed can't be decided by us. And also there's a lot of prejudging of what's going to happen in the future. And also, if I may, if the property is currently a house now, it could get sold and you don't know who's going to buy it. You don't know if it's going to be someone that's involved in serious organised criminal gangs, or if it's going to be, a school governor or person in the community. You don't know who's in the residential properties at the moment. So how can you prejudge who's going to be in the children's homes of the future?
I get that, you can't really prejudge, and I totally understand that, but obviously we're trying to protect our community in relation to what could happen and what's already going on within the community and what these children may be subjected or available to as current children are. In relation to what you mentioned as well, obviously taking into account of the Highways Agency, the actual report they've submitted was just a screenshot. It was actually from Google Street View. I don't think anybody's attended the site in relation to, they have done for the additional parking, but refuse lorries they can't get down most of the time. And there is further issues with commercial vehicles parking on that actual street. And as I've mentioned earlier on, the actual turning circle is leasehold. I don't believe it belongs to the property. It belongs to all the properties that are within that courtyard.
There's parking matters that are mentioned within the report, which we'll get onto with the officers. But yeah, I understand your points for that.
Councillors, any questions? Anything further?
Yeah, I just want to say, as far as I'm concerned, it will be a home, and it'll have 3 children in it that deserve the right to live anywhere, just like everybody else.
Totally understand that, and like I say, we've not denied that these children don't need home and they don't need support and they don't need reintegrating, but if they're going to be within that community, then they're subject to the crime levels that they're going to be available to, as any children may be, but like I've mentioned, these children may not have had the best start in life. Also, in addition to that, it's they have got several homes in the area already as well. And my concern is obviously the size of the property, because I actually live in the property that's exactly the same layout, is the future of actually expanding it to more children.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. You said that there seems to be a lot of antisocial behaviour, kids on motorbikes, stuff like that, but the police are saying that it isn't. Why can you contradict what the police are saying? What have you got in evidence, and why hasn't that been reported to police so that it supports your case even more?
I think it has been reported to the police, but because the police don't do anything about it, and it happens every single day, people just don't bother reporting it anymore. Every single day there's motorbikes on that park, kids without, with helmets on tearing around that park every single day.
There is actually the Acorn Community Hub, which has obviously opened recently to support with neighbourhood crime. So that's been invested in by Armthorpe. I didn't get any information regarding the actual planning application, but there's lots of things on the community page where people are reporting crime. And it's quite high crime and heavy police presence within the area as well.
And then second thing, you said that they've got lots of these children's homes on your estate. What are they performing like and where are they?
The homes, I think they've got 2 on Paxton Crescent. There's one on Oakwood Drive, and then there's some in Rosington.
So what I'm saying is that on your estate, there's none.
Paxton Crescent's literally the street over the main road.
And is the antisocial behaviour carrying on there?
I'm not too sure in relation to that.
Councillor Wood, very good questions, but I think some of the respondents aren't really qualified to answer those. In relation to how they're performing, that's a CQC issue.
I'm just pointing out to that if you're going to make a statement like that, that you need to be able to put some
provide the evidence. I totally understand that, but it's just for clarification. For this is going to be recorded. It'll be going out there. Members of the public will be able to see this later on. So it's just to give both sides of the argument on there. So they're not really qualified to answer that. Like I said, CQC would be able to respond to that question on how they're performing. Police would be able to provide us with up-to-date figures on crime and nuisance and such. And I know residents feel strongly about issues, and it can seem more amplified when you're living in that environment, but there's quantifiable qualitative data out there that we use for that. Councillors, any other questions? No? Thank you for that. If you're more than welcome to go back to where you were before. Thank you very much. I believe we have one of the planning consultants, Mr. Machin. I suppose I'm pronouncing that correctly. Are you here? Hello. Would you like to come down to the front, please? And just as with the other speakers, you've got 5 minutes. Press the red button when you're ready to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning when time is about to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I start, I thought it might be helpful to just refer members to paragraph 4.13 of your report, just in response to the comments that came through from the local residents. I will just read it out. It's with regards to local provision. In terms of local provision, there is currently no similar children's residential provision in the immediate vicinity of the proposed site. While Armthorpe does have 2 existing homes, this would not be considered an oversaturation of provision within the area. And then it goes on and talks about each application to be considered on its merits. I will also refer members to paragraph 4.2, where the police have provided comments, presumably based upon their own data, where they confirm the location of the proposed children's home does not suffer from elevated levels of antisocial behaviour or criminality. And then in your officer's report later at 7.24, with the above in mind, given the particular characteristics of this area being one which experiences low antisocial behaviour and criminality. So that's just to provide a bit of context and response to some of those comments which came through from local residents. I want to address the committee today regarding the proposal for a small children's care home for up to 3 young people, and to respond directly to those concerns raised by neighbours about parking, noise and safety. I also want to explain why the Council's own planning officers are recommending approval for this application. First and foremost, this is not a speculative or opportunistic application. Safe Haven have put forward this proposal because there is a genuine and urgent local need for high-quality children's care in Doncaster. Safe Haven is an established provider with 13 years' experience and a proven track record of nurturing young people. Over the years, they've looked after over 500 young people, providing the stability and support these children need to recover and thrive. The homes of Ofsted rated good, and they have an excellent working partnership with Doncaster Children's Services, ensuring that every placement is carefully matched and every child receives the right support. Throughout this process, Safe Haven have worked closely with Nicola Howarth, the Council's Senior Planning Officer, to ensure that every concern has been listened to and that the proposal is something the Council can support. The Council's professional planning officers have reviewed the application in detail and are recommending approval, confirming that the scheme is fully policy compliant, and, as established in planning law, as members will know, substantial weight must be given to this fact when you make your decision. Turning to the home itself, the property is a large, modern 4-bedroom detached house, as you saw on the photographs, just like many others on the street. No changes are being made to the outside, so it will continue to look and feel like a regular family home in the neighbourhood. Only 3 children will live here, supported by a small team of staff working in shifts. The day-to-day activity, noise and comings and goings will be very similar to any other family home. On parking, the house has a double garage and 2 dedicated parking spaces at the front, so up to 4 cars can be parked off-street. This meets the council standards, and the highways team have confirmed there will be no negative impact on road safety or parking in the area. The management and staff team are fully aware that only 2 vehicles are to be on the drive at one time, with 2 further parking spaces available in the garage. Furthermore, staff are employed locally, so there's strong potential they will travel to work using public transport, as well as being encouraged to car share wherever possible. Shift patterns are also staggered to avoid overlap and unnecessary parking issues. On safety and behaviour, the police have confirmed As I said earlier, that this area does not have high levels of antisocial behaviour or crime. And with one-to-one staff supervision and security measures in place, the home will be a safe and healthy environment for everyone. Safe Haven staff are highly experienced in proactively managing behaviours that challenge, providing close support and a family-like atmosphere so that the children feel safe, valued and included. The home will be registered with Ofsted and must meet strict standards for care and safety. Going back to the officer report, comments 4.8, 9, 10 from your own CDC, children, young people and families, describe the process in terms of placing the children at the homes. The home will be registered with Ofsted. Every child placed in the home will be carefully matched to make sure they're suited to the area and the other young people in the home. If there are concerns about a child's behaviour, they simply won't be placed here. Most importantly, this home will be a safe and nurturing environment for children and young people who, through no fault of their own, have experienced various forms of abuse and neglect. Safe Haven's goal is to offer them the stability, care and support they need to recover.
You've got 30 seconds remaining.
In summary, this application is policy compliant, backed by the Council's professional officers and will give vulnerable children a safe, nurturing place to live without causing harm to the local area. 13 years of experience, Ofsted good rating and a partnership with Doncaster Children's Services set the gold standard for children's care. This is an opportunity to make a real difference for local children who need it most. Let's give the young people the chance they deserve. Please support this application and help transform lives in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any panel members wish to ask any questions? Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I just want to confirm separate office space. Will there be a separate office space within the house?
That's right. Downstairs, I think it's the current front room is a staff space.
Panel, any other questions? Councillor Dennis?
Thank you. Sort of coming off the back of my colleague Councillor Platter's point, and also something you mentioned towards the end, I don't think it's necessarily part of the planning considerations. You mentioned about it be supporting local children. So if the plan does go ahead, would it be for Doncaster, South Yorkshire, Yorkshire-based children?
Yeah, I mean, the children are local children placed, currently living locally. So the likelihood is that they would be, it's a local need, to meet a local need. Yeah.
Thank you. And again, on the shift patterns, would you be able to just detail sort of what the shift patterns would be? Because I'm trying to link that then to the parking availability.
There's a 10-minute slot, if you like, in between the next shift starting, just for an overlap of the staff, so that one staff can get finished up and leave, and the other one can arrive, but it can't arrive any earlier than that 10 minutes.
Gotcha. But you also said about sort of car sharing. So I'm trying to marry up car sharing with then the overlap, so they won't be able to.
Well, at the moment, only the manager has been identified for the home. Obviously, we haven't got planning permission yet, but the staff will be employed locally, and therefore, if there's two staff that are living close by to one another, or one could pick the other one up, they'll be encouraged to do so.
Okay. Thank you.
Panel, any other questions? No. Do officers wish to clarify any matters of fact?
Just very briefly from me, Chair, because Councillors Cox, Dennis and Anderson dealt with most of the things that I was going to mention. The only things I would just flag up are that there is no planning policy within the local plan that seeks to retain housing for that use expressly. And obviously we're considering the fact that there's a need for this type of accommodation. There was a question about covenants. I think one of the local residents raised that there wasn't an ability to use the properties for anything other than housing, not as a business use. That's not a material planning consideration for us. We can't take that into account. So it may conceivably be that they get planning permission, but then the covenant prevents them being able to carry out that use. But that's entirely a private matter and not for us, and not something we could refuse planning permission on the basis of. Residents also raised a concern around this potentially being the starting point for further development on the site, potentially through the conversion of the garage. I think they mentioned that would need to come back to us as a planning application. So if they were proposing to intensify the use at any time, then that would come back and be assessed at that time. Thank you.
Panel will now go into debate. Does any member wish to comment or ask any questions to the officers? Councillor Cox.
Can I move that we grant this, please?
Is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to the imposition of planning conditions? Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Anderson and Councillor Cox, are you seconding? You proposed it. Councillor Anderson, are you seconding? Can we please indicate by raising your hand those who are for the application? Those who are against? That is carried. The application is granted. Thank you. And thank you again to the residents and making representations on behalf of your community. Thank you for attending. Now moving on to application number 425000568 FUL, change of use from residential C3 to residential institution C2 for up to 3 children and proposed garage conversion into habitable space to create additional staff bedroom at 21 Saxon Avenue, Hatfield, Doncaster. The planning officer is Owen Herring. Owen, can you introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Chair. Okay. So, first of all, just in terms of pre-committee amendments, there is one amendment to the report which involves removing reference to staff changeovers occurring every other day in the introduction. The applicant's rota has indicated that staff movements will occur every day, which the proposal was assessed against later in the report and is considered acceptable. The application seeks planning permission for the change of use of a residential dwelling C3 to a children's residential home C2 at 21 Saxon Avenue in Hatfield. The proposed development would be occupied by up to 3 children between 7 to 17 years old, with a maximum of 2 care staff and 1 manager working at the property at any one time. The care staff will be present 24 hours, 7 days a week on rotational shift patterns, and the manager will be present 9 till 5, Monday to Friday. Care staff changeovers will occur at 9:30 to 10 a.m. In order to facilitate the proposed use, the application proposes to convert the existing garage into an additional staff bedroom. Conversion will involve replacing the garage door with a window and surrounding brick to front elevation. This application is presented to Planning Committee due to the number of representations in objection to the application. So just to give you a flavour of the local interest, so 16 representations, as I say. 1 representation is in support and the other 15 are in objection. The main concerns that are raised are that the proposal will increase crime levels and social behaviour. The proposal is located in an unsafe environment for the children to live in. The proposal will increase traffic and parking where parking is already limited. The constant change in both children and staff at the property impacts the sense of community, and the house is too small to house children safely. The proposal will result in increased noise disturbances. The proposal will result in increased waste. The proposal will result in increased demands on the facilities in and around the estate. So this is the site plan with the application site outlined in red. The application site comprises of an existing 4-bedroom, 2-storey detached residential property located within King's Lodge new build residential estate, which is located off Doncaster Road. The area surrounding the site is entirely residential. The property has a double driveway to the front, which will be used by staff. This accords with the number of staff spaces required for the use, this scale, as set out in the local plan. More generally, there are visitor parking spaces available throughout the new build estate and some on-street parking to accommodate any visitors or the additional staff parking beyond these standards. The Council's Highway Development Control Team have been consulted on the proposal and they've raised no objections to the parking arrangements. These are the proposed floor plans. As advised earlier, the garage will be converted into additional staff bedrooms / office space. Following the conversion of the garage, the dwelling would have a total of 5 bedrooms, which would comprise of 3 bedrooms for the children and 2 bedrooms for staff, one of which has an ensuite. The sizes of all the bedrooms accord with the nationally defined space standards, and the total floor space also accords with the nationally defined space standards. Property has a kitchen, utility, lounge, WC and bathroom. To the rear there's a large garden, private garden, which is again suitable in size above 100 square metres. In terms of neighbouring amenity, the proposal will provide accommodation for up to 3 young people. In addition to this, there will always be 2 care staff at the property, as well as 1 service manager present. The total number of children and staff at the property at one time will be 6. The noise level arising from this scale of use is therefore unlikely to significantly differ from that arising from the occupation as a large C3 family dwelling house. The number of vehicle movements from staff members arriving and leaving will be a maximum 3 two-way movements a day, which is not unusual in a residential area. Care staff changeovers are proposed to take place in the hours 9:30 to 10 a.m. Off-peak hours to ensure they don't conflict with taking children to school and leaving for work. The number of visitors associated with this scale of use will also be minimal and likely to create noise disturbances outside what is expected in a residential area. The Council's Environmental Health Team have been consulted on the proposal and raised no objections in relation to noise. To ensure the scale does not expand to unacceptable levels, conditions have been added to limit the number of children residing at the property and staff working at the property at any one time. The applicant has provided a management plan which details that a structured waste disposal system will be implemented. The level of waste associated with the proposed use is not judged to require any additional provisions, given the waste produced would be of a similar quantity and type to a typical residential dwelling house. In terms of crime, both the vulnerability of the proposed use and fear of crime associated with the use have been considered. South Yorkshire Police has been consulted on the application and advised that the children's residential home does not suffer from elevated levels of antisocial behaviour and no objections have been raised. They have requested mitigation measures, security measures to mitigate any risks to residents. A consultation response has also been received by the localities manager, who has raised that there has been instances of low-level antisocial behaviour in the area, particularly around local green spaces. But it considered with the security measures proposed by the police that this will mitigate the low-level risk at the site. With regards to fear of crime, this can only be legitimately be a material planning consideration should the nature of the use itself be reasonably considered to cause a genuine basis for such fear. Given the particular characteristics of the area, one which experiences low-level antisocial behaviour and crime, the site being well contained, secure property and additional security measures, there is considered to be no legitimate basis for the fear of crime. So moving to the existing and proposed elevation plans. As you can see, the proposal involves a minor alteration to the front to the property, specifically by replacing the garage door with a window and surrounding brick. The alteration is modest in scale and sympathetic with the host dwelling and surrounding area. A condition will be imposed requiring materials to match the existing property. And then I've just provided some site photos of the context of the area. So this one is just of 21 Saxon Avenue with the double driveway to the front, parking. Here are some further photos showing the street context. So the top left is sort of more zoomed out perspective of 21 Saxon Avenue. And the bottom right one shows visitor parking spaces just to the left there. And also the current on-street parking situation along Saxon Avenue. This one, the photo on the top left, is another street photo of Saxon Avenue. And the photo on the bottom right is along Pippin Way, which is a road just situated to the west of the site. So in conclusion, the site is located within a sustainable area and is considered acceptable in principle. The use would not give rise to any unacceptable impacts on residential amenity, crime, fear of crime or highway safety. There have been no technical objections for any consultees. The scale of the use would be similar to that of a large residential dwelling. Therefore, the residential impacts would not be dimensionally different or more harmful. The proposed use would involve minor alterations that are in keeping with the character of the area. So overall, the development will be in accordance with the development plan, and as such, it is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. Mr. Wren, are you here? Mr. Wren, would you like to come to the front, please? Please, you'll have 5 minutes to address the panel. When you're ready to speak, please press the red button, and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Wren. I'm head of service actually for the company. I'm not a planning consultant. I've opened a lot of homes in my history, and I'll be quite honest, what I've heard here today from others is nothing short of what I've heard previously. And for me, that doesn't portray children's homes in a true light. Upwards residential care, we provide trauma-informed care. We have professionals that consult with ourselves. And I'm a believer that every child has a right to have a good home and not be sort of stigmatised. And that's why I've been in the job and I'm delivering this type of care for 27 years now, 15 of them for the local authority, and the rest has been in the public sector. We have done the research on the home, we have done the research on the area. We've also been in contact with Doncaster Children's Commissioning and work closely within what they are classing as their needs. And so we will be looking to place local kids predominantly, and we will be looking to employ local people, you know, because we're very focused and for young people on building that community and having them young people integrate into that community. And, you know, I mean, all I can say really is we will do our best to do that. We've, like I say, we've researched with the police, we've, you know, looked at the schools, we've looked at the amenities, you know, and all I'm saying is these kids should be given a chance and not judged, you know. And I think on that note, to be quite honest with you, that's really all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Wren. Can you turn your microphone off then? Panel members, do you have any questions for Mr. Wren? Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, just on the parking, I don't know if I'm missing something here, but you're proposing to convert one of the garages into a habitable space, an extra bedroom. So won't that impact quite a bit on the parking?
No, because the way that we've worked it is there is enough room on the front to put 2 guards and not impede the road or path or anything else. The reason we was doing the garage downstairs is because we wanted to make sure that there was office space for the staff. So that's what it's mainly been converted for.
That was going to be my next question, because where it says a utility lounge, WC an office/bedroom. I was just a bit uncomfortable that an office and a bedroom, that's what I thought when I looked at that. So it is going to be a separate office.
Yeah, we're looking to make the garage into what we call it's big enough when you see the size of the garage into an office space, but also there will be a bedroom there. There will be a bedroom downstairs. It'll be an office bedroom.
I take it that'll be for staff use then as opposed to children's use.
Oh, yeah, staff use. Yes, sorry, it's not children's use. No, it is staff use, yes.
So just to clarify, the bedroom and the office are going to be as one?
Yes, the bedroom and office will be, well, I say be as one. We are looking to sort of put a small partition into it, if you like, you know, so
You're looking to, or you're going to? Yeah.
No, because this is the reason, you see, we put the planning permission for 2, proposed for the downstairs to be changed into an office, bedroom, sort of living facility space for the staff. But if that's not accommodated, we would just keep the house as a 2-bedroom and just have it as an office. That would be it.
Councillor Kidger?
Thank you. Yeah, my first impressions when looking at the plans, it's a small house. Might be a 4-bedroomed house, but it's a small house. And what my colleague has said just indicates that. I don't think it's big enough. I really don't.
I've actually been into the house and walked round, been upstairs, everything else, and it is actually a 4-bedroomed house the way it is. The children have, if we was to look at the 3 bedrooms, they would have the 3 bedrooms upstairs, the other staff member would have the 4th. You've got a full-size lounge, full-size kitchen, full-size back garden. I would say it would accommodate it, but I'm quite happy to go with either the first or the second. But we was looking into putting it into a 3-bedroom. I would say it would fit 3 young people in there quite adequately and the staff team. And I've been in the house. But if you don't think that, I'm also quite easy to revert it back just to leave it at the 2, because at the end of the day, it's about the young kids.
Yeah, I mean, there's another problem. There's a covenant on this house, which says no business premises at this address. Now, I've had a word with the chair, who's given me permission to bring this up. I'd like an officer to come back at me and just state the legal position of this as to where we stand and where you stand regarding the covenant.
So we'll answer that when officers respond, but we'll move on to Councillor Anderson next.
Yeah, it wasn't actually the size issue I was referring to, even though that's a part of it. It's just I would prefer a bedroom and an office space not to be at one for a number of other reasons. Is there any way that could be? Because it's the only thing I'm struggling with. Yeah.
I think we could take the office space, the bedroom out of there. We could take the bedroom out of there, not have a bedroom at all, just leave it as an office space.
Councillor Cox.
But surely that would affect your profitability.
Councillor Kidger, let Councillor Cox come in.
I think what we need is some clarity here over what we're actually discussing, because we don't know whether we're discussing a 3-bed, 2-bed, whether the garage has a studded wall in it that separates. I think that's all Bob were asking for, clarity over maybe a studded wall that would separate a bedroom space. But I think the officer, if possible, could give us clarity of what we're actually discussing.
Councillor Kidger, could you turn your microphone off, please? Yeah, it's fine. Officers will respond to that, but is there any other questions? Councillor Wood, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If there's 3 children, there's going to be 3 adults.
It's children.
So at any one point, there's going to be 2 adults on site.
There'll be 2 adults on site at any one time, yeah.
If there's no further questions, I'll ask officers to respond.
Thank you, Chair. I'll deal with the covenant point first, if I may, and then come back. I think I said on the last item, covenants are private matters, not material planning considerations, so we won't be able to take that into account in our considerations today. I'll finish, and then if you've got a further question, we can pick that up. In terms of what the committee are being asked to determine here today, Owen showed the floor plans in his presentation, but what I would make clear is that internal configurations of the building don't require planning permission in their own right. So there could be internal works to subdivide that office/bedroom that wouldn't need planning permission from us. What you'd be looking at is the conditions that are recommended in terms of granting the permission that restrict the number of children and staff. So if you're concerned about that configuration and how it would facilitate the use for 3 children, then it's within your gift to consider whether or not fewer children in the home would be more acceptable given the internal space available. And that condition could stipulate 2 children as opposed to the 3 if that's something that you felt was necessary, but those internal changes themselves could be done without needing planning permission. Specifically, it's the use that's being considered today. Thank you.
Panel members, we're now going to go into debate. Does any member wish to make any comments on the report or ask the planning officer any further questions? Thank you, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I just wondered what the reasons were why Hatfield Parish Council voted like overwhelmingly in objection to it under third-party reps. I just wondered if there was any more information as to why they did that. Thank you.
I don't think the Parish Council did object and provide any comments. There were 15 objections in total. That was from members of the public, local residents. But there was no comment. There were no comments from the actual on behalf of the Parish Council themselves.
Any other questions?
I must have misread that then. It says Hatfield Parish Council next to it. So I assumed it was from them. But
which page? Which page are you referencing, Councillor Jones?
165.
Owen, can you turn to page 1?
I just wondered if there was more information as to what the objections were in relation to in general.
Yeah, Chair, I think I can explain. So the page 165 is the summary sheet setting out the application. So it says third party representation, 16 in total, 15 objections, 1 support. The column over just identifies which parish this falls within rather than the fact that they've objected specifically. And then at page 168 it explains that we haven't got any comments specifically from the Parish Council.
Thank you for the clarification. Any further questions? Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. It's probably more a point and discussion for our officers for a later point. In regards to 7.30 in the pack.
So which page, Councillor Dennis?
Page 176.7.30. The parking standards in the local plan require 1 parking space per staff and 1 space per 3 daily visitors. I do think that doesn't bear fruit as to what would happen in reality. I think it would be 1 car per 1 member of staff. And with this being a 2 parking space property, for any visitors or changeover of staff, they'd be reliant upon the visitor spaces on the estate itself. And I wonder whether we could get clarity on whether, as part of the planning and development process for the estate that it's on, the estate use the same formula for number of visitor spaces per property on that estate. So would it be for every 3 houses on that estate, there is 1 visitor car parking space on that estate, because then that would be a direct correlation to what we're comparing to here. Or for creation of visitor spaces, it's a different formula.
I think normally on the parking for estates, it's 1 space for 4. I think it is that they apply to the for on-street parking, that, as you're sort of saying, visitor spacing. Now, sometimes on developments you can create dedicated visitors, but on-street still qualifies. 1 in 4.
Thank you.
Councillors, any other comments, any other questions? Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I'd just like to say possibly if it could be looked at to be a two-child, bedroom. I just think even for staff, I think to have the office and the bedroom in one, I don't think it's good for staff either. I think they'd want that separate. I don't know if it's common practice, but it's just a niggle. Yeah.
So, Councillor Anderson, I'll draw your attention to page 178 and 8.3. And is that what you're proposing that we make a variation to?
It's condition number 3 in your page.
Page 178, 8.3. Is that what you're proposing that we make a variation to?
Yes.
And the variation that you're wanting to propose is that we reduce the number of children at the care home or from the home from 3 to 2 at any one time?
Yeah, I'm just not happy about an office bedroom / I don't think it benefits the children or the staff.
And is there anyone who will second that proposal? Thank you, Councillor Cox. Can we please have a vote for those who are in favour of the amendment? Councillor Dennis?
Is it possible just to have clarity on, if we did vote to reduce the numbers to 2, how or could the applicant put in another application to increase it to 3 should the property be adapted in a suitable way?
Yeah, absolutely, they could do so. What they would be doing is seeking a variation to the condition. They would need to come to us and it would go through the same process. We'd make an assessment as to whether whatever the number is that they're proposing was acceptable for all the reasons that we've set out in the report this time round. But yes, there'd be a requirement for it to come back through the planning process.
Thank you, Emma.
So there's a proposal by Councillor Anderson, and who's that seconded by, sorry? By Councillor Cox. We're going to go to a vote to vary the recommendation on page 178, 8.3. So the maximum number of children allowed at any one time is 2. Can those in favour please indicate by raising their hands and keeping the hands in the air? So we've got 6. So 6 in favour. Those who are against, can you please indicate? 3 against, and I will be abstaining. Thank you. So that recommendation has been approved on this application. Is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to the imposition of the planning commission conditions? Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Dennis, and is there anyone seconding? Oh, you're going to have to both put your hands up again. It was too quick to call. You've both been polite now. I've not got a seconder. Councillor Cox, thank you very much. I'm now going to move to a vote. Again, please indicate those who are in favour by putting the hands in there and keeping your hands up. Those in favour?
7.
Those who are against?
3.
That makes up 10, doesn't it? Right. Thank you very much. So that application is approved subject to the variation of the number of children which can be housed at the home. Thank you, everybody. I think that concludes today's business, if I'm not mistaken. It does. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. Thank you for your time and input. Can I ask the planning committee members to stay behind at the end of the meeting, please? Officers, again, thank you very much.